All right, ready to dive deep?
Always.
Today we're tackling a book that's causing quite a stir, The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton.
Oh, yeah, that one's a real mind bender.
It really challenges how we think about, well, thinking. The idea that our beliefs, thoughts, perceptions, all that jazz might be shaping our lives and health more than we realize. Some people are calling it mind-blowing, others a TKO to old Darwinian dogma.
And what's really fascinating is Lipton's background. He's a cell biologist, bringing hardcore science to what some might consider a little out there.
Right, bridging that gap between traditional science and, well, the woo-woo, as some might
He
say.
definitely doesn't shy away from controversy.
Yeah, he doesn't. But let's break it down. I think a lot of us grew up with that classic DNA as blueprint idea, genes are destiny, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the central dogma of biology, DNA to RNA to protein, this neat little package that dictates everything about us.
But Lipton's saying, hold on, not so fast.
Exactly, he's throwing a wrench in the whole thing.
So what's the wrench? Where is he departing from this traditional view?
He's saying that the environment, and get this, our thoughts and beliefs are part of that environment, can actually influence which genes get turned on or off.
Wait, so our thoughts can literally flip switches on our genes?
That's what he's suggesting. It's this whole field of epigenetics, and it's turning that central dogma on its head. Lipton says it's just way too simplistic.
Okay, so we're not just puppets of our DNA. We have more control than we thought.
That's the idea. And to illustrate this, he uses a really interesting analogy. A single cell and the human body.
A cell is like a tiny human. I'm intrigued.
Think about it. Both have a brain, a body, and a genome, right?
Okay, I see where you're going with this, but what's the cell's brain?
Well, we used to think it was the nucleus, but Lipton says, nope, it's the cell membrane. That outer layer, it's the brain.
So the membrane is calling the shots. How does that even work?
It's like a super sophisticated data processor. The membrane is constantly reading signals from the environment and then directing the cell's response based on that information.
So instead of the nucleus being the command center, it's more like a library of potential responses, and the membrane decides which book to pull off the shelf.
Perfect analogy.
Uh,
It's all based on what's happening outside the cell.
Fascinating. So how does this cell analogy apply to us, walking, talking humans?
Well, if we scale this up, our cell membranes are reading our thoughts and perceptions as part of the environment.
You're saying our minds are influencing the very behavior of our cells.
Exactly. It's like our minds are part of the environment that our cells are responding to. Pretty wild, huh?
Yeah, that's kind of blowing my mind. So are you saying if I'm thinking negative thoughts all the time, those thoughts are actually impacting my cells in a negative way?
That's the idea. And on the flip side, positive thoughts, positive beliefs, they can influence our cells in a positive way.
So two people could go through the same experience, but because they perceive it differently, their bodies could react completely differently.
Exactly. It's not just the event itself, it's how we interpret it that matters.
So it's like the glass half full, half empty thing, but on a cellular level. That's actually pretty empowering. So even if we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control how we react, and that has a direct impact on our biology.
You got it. And that's just scratching the surface of what Lipton dives into.
This is really challenging, the idea that we're just victims of our genes then. It's
Yeah.
saying we have way more agency than we thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting. If our perceptions and beliefs are so powerful, we have to ask, where do those beliefs come from in the first place?
Okay, so beliefs are powerful stuff, but where do they even come from? We aren't born with them, right?
Right. And this is where Lipton takes us deep into the subconscious mind. Think of it as a giant storehouse of beliefs, many formed when we were kids.
The subconscious, huh? Starting to feel a bit like Inception in here. But seriously, why is the subconscious so important in all this biology of belief stuff?
Because, as Lipton explains, those subconscious beliefs, the ones we might not even realize we have, are often running the show behind the scenes. It's like a default setting, shaping how we see the world and react to it.
So even if I'm consciously trying to be positive, to adopt those good beliefs, my subconscious could be working against me. All those old programs messing things up.
Exactly, like trying to run the latest software on a clunky old computer. Those outdated programs in the background can really interfere.
Okay, that makes sense, but it's also a bit daunting. How do we even start to change these subconscious programs? It's not like we can just sit down and have a chat with our subconscious, can we?
Well, maybe not a direct chat, but Lipton suggests there are ways to access and reprogram those beliefs. He pulls from psychology, energy healing, things like affirmations, visualization, even hypnosis.
Hypnosis. Like swinging pocket watches and making people cluck like chickens. I gotta admit, I'm a bit skeptical about that whole hypnosis thing.
Not quite that dramatic. But Lipton argues that hypnosis, when done right, can be a powerful tool to tap into the subconscious, plant new suggestions. It's about getting past that critical, conscious mind and accessing the deeper level where beliefs are stored.
So not about mind control, but more like intentionally influencing the subconscious. Okay, I can see that. But what about other ways to reprogram those beliefs, especially if someone's not too keen on the whole hypnosis idea?
Well, Lipton's a big fan of energy psychology, things like AFT, the emotional freedom technique, or Psyche. They work with the body's energy systems, kind of like acupuncture, to release and reprogram those limiting beliefs.
Energy psychology, that does sound a bit out there. But hey, if we're already talking about thoughts influencing biology, why not explore all the options, right?
Exactly. What seems out there today might be mainstream tomorrow. Lipton's point is that we need to be open to expanding our understanding of what's possible with this mind-body connection.
So, how does all this translate to real life? How can people actually use this knowledge about the subconscious to, make positive changes? That's what our listeners want to know, taking theory and actually applying it.
Well, first, it's realizing that we're not just stuck with this past programming. Once we understand our subconscious beliefs are shaping our reality, that's where empowerment comes in, like realizing you can rewrite the code running your life.
Switching from autopilot to actually being in the driver's seat.
Exactly. And once you're there, you can start identifying those limiting beliefs holding you back.
Yeah.
It might take some digging, journaling, therapy, introspection to find those patterns, but it's worth it.
So, two steps. One, realizing beliefs matter, and then playing detective to figure out what they are, especially the ones below the radar. But once we've found those limiting beliefs, what then? How do we change them?
Lipton says it's about replacing the old, unhelpful beliefs with new, positive ones. And it's not just thinking positive thoughts, it's consciously, consistently exposing yourself to new ideas and experiences that support those new beliefs you want. Affirmations, visualizations, surrounding yourself with people who embody those qualities you want to cultivate.
So, creating a new groove in your subconscious mind through repetition, exposure to these empowering beliefs.
Exactly. Retraining the brain to operate from a different set of instructions.
Mm.
And remember the placebo effect. Perfect example. Our beliefs can create actual physical changes in our bodies.
Right. If people get pain relief from a fake surgery just because they believe it's real, imagine the possibilities when we believe in our own power to change.
Absolutely. And this leads us to another fascinating piece of Lipton's work, the role of childhood experiences in shaping those subconscious programs. He says those early years are crucial for belief formation. That's where many of our deepest, most ingrained patterns come from.
Childhood programming, huh? We've all heard, give me a child until he is 7 and I will show you the man. But Lipton's giving us a scientific explanation for why those early experiences are so powerful, right?
Right. He points out that during the first 6 years of life, our brains are mainly in this theta brainwave state. Similar to a hypnotic trance, actually. Young children are like sponges, absorbing everything around them, and those early experiences shape their beliefs about themselves, the world, everything.
Wow, that's pretty wild. We're basically being programmed without even knowing it. Makes you wonder what kind of messages we all picked up back then that might still be running the show today.
And that's a question we'll dig into in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore how those childhood experiences shape our beliefs, and, more importantly, what we can do to reprogram those old patterns and create a more empowering reality.
So we're talking about how our brains are basically sponges in those early years, soaking up all those experiences, forming beliefs that can stick around, maybe even for a lifetime. It's making me think about my own childhood, certain things that probably shaped how I see things now.
It's incredible, isn't it? Like Lipton says, those first 6 years are key. The brain's mostly in that theta brainwave state, like a hypnotic trance. You know that hazy, suggestible feeling right when you're falling asleep or waking up?
Yeah, yeah.
Kids spend so much time in that state, super receptive to everything around them, messages, experiences, the whole 9 yards.
So it's not just like big traumatic events. Even those little everyday things can program our beliefs, things we don't even think about.
Exactly. Offhand comments from parents, teachers, other kids. You're no good at math.
Uh-huh.
Or you're always so clumsy. It all gets lodged in the subconscious, shapes how we see ourselves for years.
It's kind of freaky when you think about it. Like, do we really have as much free will as we think if so much is decided before we even realize it? What's Lipton's take on that?
He says, understanding this is actually the first step to taking back our power. Awareness is key. Once we shed light on those subconscious programs running in the background, then we can start to change them, rewrite them.
Okay, awareness. Got it. But how do we actually reprogram these beliefs? Is one thing to get it, but changing those automatic reactions, the patterns, that feels way harder. Does Lipton offer any, like, techniques, practical stuff?
He does. There's a whole range, but one that stands out is energy psychology. EFT, emotional freedom technique, is one example.
Hmm.
It's tapping on specific acupuncture points while you focus on the belief you want to release,
Mm.
almost like physically interrupting the energy connected to that belief.
So it's not just positive thinking, it's working with the body's energy to shift things on a deeper level. Have you tried any of this yourself?
I have. And honestly, I've been surprised how effective it can be. It's not some magic cure-all, but it's a really interesting way to approach this mind-body connection. Lipton's also big on repetition, affirmations, visualizations, even hypnosis, to consciously plant those new, empowering beliefs, like carving a new groove in your mind through sheer repetition.
Like those old self-hypnosis tapes. But now we know more about the science behind it.
Exactly. And even just bringing mindful awareness to your thoughts and actions can be powerful.
Yeah.
When you catch yourself reacting in a way that shows that old limiting belief, just pause, notice it, then choose a different response. It's rewiring those neural pathways. And over time, that new positive belief becomes the automatic one.
So it's not about beating ourselves up for having these old patterns, it's just noticing them and making a different choice. This has been an amazing deep dive, but if we had to sum up the biggest takeaway from the biology of belief, what would it be?
I think it's this. We are not victims, not of our genes, not of our past. We have the power to change our beliefs. And when we do that, we change our biology, our lives, maybe even the world. It's moving from victim to master, like Lipton says.
It's a powerful message, and it's backed by science, which makes it even stronger. Lipton ends the book on a really hopeful note, right?
It does. He talks about a future where we embrace this new understanding of biology, recognizing how connected everything is, focusing on cooperation, not just competition. He thinks that shift is key for a more peaceful, sustainable world.
So it's not just personal growth, it's about a bigger shift in how we see ourselves, how we see the world. I love that. Before we wrap up, any practical advice our listeners can take away and use right now, today?
Pay attention to your self-talk. Notice those negative beliefs that pop up. Oh, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be able to do that. When you hear those, pause. Ask yourself, is this really true? Or is it just an old program running? That simple awareness can be surprisingly powerful.
It's becoming the observer of our own minds, stepping outside those automatic thoughts and choosing a different story.
Exactly. And each time you challenge a limiting belief, you're literally changing your biology, opening up new possibilities, new experiences.
This has been a truly fascinating look at the biology of belief. Thanks for joining us. And to everyone listening, what belief are you ready to let go of? Pay attention to that inner voice, challenge those negative thoughts, and remember, you have the power to rewrite your story.